what attracted me here was a big, beautiful cinnamon-colored black bear crossing the road. Probably the reason I stay here is because it still is wild. It's a wonderful thing to live within an ecosystem where nearly all of the components that were there historically are still here. And being part of that without destroying it is a really important exercise that gives me satisfaction. At the time, the community was fairly polarized over logging and environmentalist issues. People were really trying to figure out how to live within the environment here, and but all the meetings were loud and contentious, and people went home feeling that they hadn't really won the argument. The people who liked to speak out spoke out and spoke out and spoke out, and the quiet people didn't ever say anything or just didn't come. So back in the early 90s, some of our longtime residents, some of our respected elders thought we could do a better job in our community of resolving issues. So they decided to form a group called the Swan Citizens Ad Hoc Committee.
When the Forest Service was going to leave their presence here in the valley, and the people didn't want that to happen, how they got together and formed the Ecosystem Center. And so it's a presence that I think is really important in the valley.
So we brought in the district ranger, sat him down in a circle, and argued with him about why the facility should stay open. And as it turns out, we finally realized they really indeed did not have the funding. And if we wanted to have a connection to the Forest Service in the valley, we should help. So that was one thing that happened that prompted us to look into becoming a 501c3 nonprofit. After maybe some months or maybe a year or so of practicing in this sort of safe environment, we realized that we weren't going to go anywhere if the full community wasn't involved. So it was the ad hoc committee meetings were open to everybody, and people were encouraged to come. Meetings were announced, and people would come if the issue we happened to be discussing was important to them. A lot of people aren't meeting goers. They actually found the facilitation process tiresome. It's more fun to go to a meeting and shout it out. I don't know, maybe.
Working together in a teaching environment was critical to us, and I think the group up at the Eco Center did such a great job of being interested in our goals, in our land, in our future, and how it impacts not only us, our family, but how we can help the community preserve really important habitats going forward. And that's unusual to have somebody that invested in your goals and your vision.
When we formed Swan Ecosystem Center and began raising money, we then had the tools to get the word out. So we have, an office, computers. We had the ability to put articles in the Pathfinder, the local weekly. So we started using all the techniques we could think of. Of course, one of the simple techniques that is most widely used here is putting notices up on the bulletin boards around the community. And I was the only person who actually knew how to use a computer, and so I took the job of director. And that's how we started. And we developed programs for people of all ages. We have an education program that involves local kids. We had oral history projects that involved our elders. And eventually, one person at a time, someone would get interested in some aspect of what we were doing, get involved, and for them find out that it wasn't what they maybe had thought it was. And little by little, we've, I think, broken down some barriers.
SEEK has always been a wonderful collaborator in terms of working with private foundations and government agencies and so forth to understand, to take advantage of their resource base, to support the valley, because for a long time our goal was to find means to set aside lands in the valley that we were very concerned would be subject to development. And we felt that that was in no way compatible with what this valley is all about.
My aha moment, remember I'm the environmentalist person, and my polar opposite was the retired logger Neil Meyer. And over time, as we discussed some of the contentious issues, I listened, and that was, I think, the most important part of course, this collaborative method, is that you're actually listening and putting yourself in the shoes of everyone else in the room. And so I had listened enough to what Neil's perspective would be that I began to understand his thinking. And so at one meeting he wasn't able to attend, and we were talking about a critical issue. Don't remember what it was at this point, but I do remember stopping the conversation and saying, wait a minute, Neil's not in the room. He would say this, and we need to capture his opinion even though he's not here. So that's part of the decision making. In a collaborative situation, you never give up your point of view, because that's something that is meaningful to you. It's not, you don't compromise and say, okay, I'll tolerate this big loss so that I can get you to make a change and we'll get somewhere in the middle. What really happens with true collaboration, I think, is that you hang on to what's dear to your heart, but through the process you are learning from each other, so what's dear to your heart may be changing. And all of a sudden you've grown from one position to another through learning about things. So you're never really compromising or giving away something.
The loggers, people who lay gravel and help plane out the dirt roads that we have, they're out there every day dealing with what this land is all about. And often they bring so much information in a different headset to, again, those information points coming back to a center. I think the Eco Center has done a really good job of making sure that as we pursue this project, we're using all the people who are locally, the loggers, and who really work the land. And to them, it's not any kind of a theory. It's what they do to live, and live here, not just to earn a living, but to live here, and they will bring up their children here.
There is funding for the organization available that actually provides financial assistance to landowners that want to be proactive is fantastic. So a lot of people in the valley are taking advantage of this opportunity. So having an organization that connects with the source of funds, has the knowledge base, what more could you ask as a valley citizen? It's just a matter of taking advantage of it and beginning to learn and to share so that it becomes a source of common knowledge.
It's been a long haul getting everybody in the community to warm to this idea. And of course we'll never get everybody to warm to it, but we've made a lot of headway, little by little, slowly.